So what I'd like to do is first show you a few samples of my glass art. And a lot of art has been done about the art of aging. That's been a theme because I was a gerontologist, but my book is also about aging. And it just brings in the theme that I've studied all my life, and then I'm living it. And so I've had a number of exhibits about aging. So I'll tell you about some of these pieces. This is a piece that I call Life is a Game of Monopoly. And it's a takeoff, obviously, on the game. And it has, along the sides are different dimensions of time. Stages of a person's life from infancy to sagehood. Times of day, seasons of the year, and then stages of humanity from the Stone Age to the Web Age. And then there's fate and fortune. Fate are the bad things that happen, like, go to hospital, spend $250,000. Roof leak, spend $10,000. And fortune are the good things, like sell art, earn 35 cents. Most of the glass that I've worked with, I work with wonderful glass blowers. I work with 3 of them. Michael Boyd, who was the founder of the Minnesota Center for Glass Art. And so if I want something large, I work with Michael. Lucinda Silvas was the first glass blower I worked with. She worked for the police department. I don't think she was on the staff. I don't think she was a policewoman. And when she retired, she started glass blowing. And Bonnie Hines, who does both glass and metal work. I'm sort of afraid of fire, so I don't do my own glass. And it takes a really long time to develop an expertise and a lot of physical strength, which I don't have. So most of the pieces I design the glass and then I work with somebody else. This piece, and you're looking at 2 sides of the piece, I actually helped do the glass itself. It's sand cast glass. So I made a little mold in sand and created this glass. And I call it late blooms because I feel of myself that I'm a late bloom. This is a very large bowl. It's called A Time to Dance. And I've done a lot of pieces about dancing because I love to dance. But this is about older people dancing, and it's painted on the inside. And a lot of the pieces, my husband will tell you, I love painting on the inside because then you can look through the glass. Glass is really a liquid, and that's why I love working with it, because it has this wonderful dynamic thing about it. And I have the glass blowers. You can't really quite tell with the picture, but it has these thick areas of glass. So as you move around the glass, the dancers they move. They there's this sort of liquidy quality as if you're looking through water. This is called Hurry Up, It's Time. And it's the sense of, they're always telling you, move faster, do more. When I was in academia, it's like, if you've published 3 papers this year, well, can you publish 5 next year? 2 more. Hurry up! It's time. And I have the numbers of a digital clock: 8:01, 8:02, 8:03 as you go through time. And this is another one related to it: that time does not equal money. I hate the phrase "time is money." Time is all we have. Time is what we have as the essence of our lives. And money is important. If you don't have it, it's really important. But it's not the same. This one I call Exit, No Exit. It's a bowl that reminded me of an amphitheater. So I put people sitting around the amphitheater, and because I had sketched for so many years, I used the sketches that I've done, and so people who have never met each other find themselves on the same bowl. But if you ever, you go to the theater, you're watching a play, but if you think about it, there are all these stories that are happening all around you. Everybody has a million stories. So there's all this dynamic in the people who are sitting in the theater. This is called Life is a Carousel. Again, it's painted on the inside with with layers of paint. And this is called Linked Lives. My first book was actually called Linked Lives, Adult Daughters and Their Mothers, and it was based in part on my doctoral dissertation. And this one, I kind of dedicated to my mother because it shows my mother at different stages of her life. And this one, this is a larger-than-life piece. I think many of us can relate to this. It's actually not on glass, it's on plexiglass, and it's quite large. It has over 100 pieces of hardware in it. The breakdown of movable parts, because every part that you have that's movable, that's what's going to break. Whether it's your brain or your joints. My sister has had 3 knee replacement parts, 3 knee replacements, and I've had issues with my knees, and all of us have one area or another that moves. And this one's called "I Seem to Be Falling Apart," and it's a large, again, a life size, and it's on plexiglass, not glass, but it's a textured plexiglass. I don't know if you feel like it, but sometimes I feel like I have it all together. Everything is just fine. I can manage it. I get all these projects, and I can do everything, and I'm Superwoman and all this. And then it's an illusion, because then the next moment it's like I seem to be falling apart. So I did this portrait of me where I split the portrait into different fragments. I've also done a lot of things about spirituality. I'm Jewish, and I started an art group 10 years ago called the Jewish Women Artist Circle. And so some of the pieces I'm going to show you are from that. We study with scholars, Jewish scholars, and sometimes university scholars, about different themes. And then we create art and have exhibits. In fact, our current exhibit is at the First Universalist Church in Minneapolis. And we just had a 10-year retrospective exhibit at the Phipps Museum in Stillwater. So a lot of these pieces, this is a Seder plate about the story of Moses. And this one is called The Community of Souls. It was on a number of exhibits, and then it was at the Fine Arts exhibit at the State Fair, and it was purchased for a glass museum in Armenia. So my souls went to Armenia. This one is called With Every Breath I Breathe in the Universe. It was on a theme about Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, and we had studied different elements of it. And one of our scholars in particular was talking about the oneness of everything. And that really resonated with me. And this idea that, every breath that I take is part of this larger, greater universe. That's what makes us all part of something much greater than ourselves. And so there's this figure that's me, kind of trying to understand life and failing and not really understanding it, but being part of this universe and part of the animals and the roots and the trees that have red in them. The trees are bleeding too. This one is called Dancing with the Torah, and it was only in a couple exhibits, one at our synagogue and the other one at the State Fair, and this was also purchased for this glass museum in Armenia. So this Armenian glass museum now has 2 pieces of Jewish art. This one, the painting I showed you of me sitting on the floor is part of this bowl. We were doing an exhibit about tikkun, which means repair. You might hear the term tikkun olam, repair of the world. And this piece was inspired by a trip to a coal mining exhibit in Nova Scotia. Have you ever been to a coal mining museum? It's really amazing. It was not a functional mine that we visited. It was just a museum. But to go into this museum, you had to bend down because there were places where you couldn't stand up, and it would have been dark. The life of coal miners today, even at different parts, incredibly dangerous, incredibly horrible in so many ways. That it's dark, it's dangerous. There's you have these trolleys that go at high speeds into these tracks, and they can fall off the tracks. There's so many ways of accidents happening. In fact, when this piece first went on exhibit, there had just been a huge accident in Chile, I think, and it just. So this piece shows coal miners on the bottom, and it's my family, the family I was growing up with, on the top, and it's our heat and light come on the backs of these workers. And it has a phrase from a book called Ethics of Our Fathers. For there is no person who does not have his hour, and there is no thing without its place in the sun, unless you're a coal miner and you're living all these times in the sun and at the sun. This one was done for a piece about creation. And this was one of my harder pieces to paint because it's 17 inches high, and I was painting on the inside, and I might have been doing just a little swearing as I was doing it, because one of the difficulties of painting isn't just reaching the piece, but the glass distorts it, which is what I love about the glass, but it also makes it hard for you to see what you're doing. So it's about, we had some biologists from the university talking to us. So it's about evolution and this dynamic aspect of evolution. The title is In the Beginning because evolution is always happening. We're always evolving. Life is always happening and in a state of change. And this was about, for the first exhibit we had read the first chapter of Genesis. Then we were reading about the creation of woman and man and the tree of knowledge. And so I made an Eve as when Eve gets into trouble, and Eve and Adam get into trouble, and they bite the apple, and they're being punished. Adam says to Eve, and he gives her the name Eve. In Hebrew, that's Chava, which means life. And he says, I'm giving you this name of Eve because you will be the mother of all life. So I made a pregnant Eve. And she's a black woman because life started in Africa. So we're wrong if she's not black. It has to be a black woman. And she has all life, all these tiny fetuses inside her that are going to populate the world. And it's glass on a collage board. This piece was a commission for, somebody called me from Houston, and he wanted to do a piece in memory of his wife, who had died in her mid-40s. And I created this piece with the Jewish holidays. It's now at the Jewish Community Center in Houston. And I had the phrase, Manora hamakom hazeh, how awesome is this place. It's from the story of Jacob. When Jacob has a dream of the angels going up and down, he wakes up and he has a sense that he's in a holy place. And so for me, if we have that sense, wherever we are, how about the Arboretum, that we're in a holy place? This is holy ground. And so that's why I made this piece. It's glass. It's got metal musical notes because the phrase is a chant. And so it has the notes to that chant.